All right, today we're going to be talking about how to solve inequalities using absolute value. In this particular lesson, there's going to be a lot of, well, two main rules that you need to follow and some different things you need to do. You're going to be taking your knowledge of inequalities, compound inequalities, and your knowledge of absolute value and kind of mushing them all together into how to solve inequalities with absolute value. All right, so just to get to it, we have a couple rules we need to follow. Um, First up is if we have an absolute value of whatever equation we have in here is less than a number, then we're going to solve it using a compound inequality that looks like an and compound inequality. Okay, so it's going to be negative b is less than whatever a is, which is less than positive b. Okay. All right. Our other rule is if our absolute value is greater than b. In that case, we're going to use the compound inequality or. We're going to say a is less than negative b, or a is greater than b. Okay. All right. So we're just going to go through and do an example real quick. So we have the absolute value of 2x minus 4 is less than 10. All right, so we're going to go up and we're going to remember what our rule is. So in this case, we are going to be using this first one. All right, so I'm going to need to put this in a into an inequality. So I'm going to have 2x minus 4. All right, and I'm going to have my two signs here. All right, my positive number goes on this side, and my negative version of that is going to go on this side. From here, you will solve the compound inequality like you would normally solve it. So for this case, I'm just going to split it into two inequalities just to make it a little easier for those of you who like to see it this way. For those of you who like to solve it just within this, just know you can normally do that. I'm just doing this for um, everybody's sake, okay? All right, so now that I have my two equations split up, I can go through and solve them. I'm going to add 4, add 4. So now I'm going to have 2x, all right, is greater than negative 10 plus 4 is negative 6. Divide by 2, so I'm going to have x is greater than negative 3. Okay, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to solve again. Plus 4, plus 4, and I'm going to get 2x is less than 10 plus 4, which is 14. Divide both sides by 2, and I'm going to get x is less than 7. Now from here, I'm going to take my two inequalities, and I'm going to turn them back into a compound inequality. So I'm going to say x, which is less than 7, and it is greater than negative 3. From here, I would just solve this equation or I would just graph this equation like normal. So I would have 7 here and negative 3 here. Open circles, and because it is an and, I'm going to connect them in the middle. All right, so they're fairly simple once you get the correct rule down, and once you get solving them, they're very familiar to what you normally know. All right, we're going to do a couple more examples just to make sure that you are feeling comfortable with this. All right, so our next equation is 2x. The absolute value of 2x minus 1 is less than or equal to 5. So I'm just going to refer back to our rule page. In this case, we are going to use that same rule again. All right, I'm just going to set up the problem to make sure that you guys are getting it so we can then do another example. So I have 2x minus 1 is greater than or is less than or equal to 5. All right, and then I'm going to have which is greater than or equal to negative 5. Okay, split these two up. I'm just going to solve it with it sitting right here, so I don't have to keep rewriting it. Add 1. I now have negative 4 is less than or equal to 2x, which is less than or equal to 6. Divide all sides by 2. Get my x alone. And I have x is less than or equal to 3 and greater than or equal to negative 2. All right. So you should be fairly comfortable with this at this point, especially with the compound inequalities. Now looking the other way, we have to actually solve this using the OR, okay? This particular problem is x minus, the absolute value of x minus 4 is greater than 5. So I'm going to have to use this second rule, okay? So I'm going to have to make sure I set it up correctly, okay? So I have, my rule says it's a is less than negative b. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say, okay, my a is x minus 4 is less than my negative b, which is negative 5. And then my x minus 4 is going to be greater than 5. Okay, just like in this. Okay, greater than 5. All right, so then I can solve this like normal. Add 4. Add 4. I have x is less than negative 5 plus 4, which is negative 1. Add 4 to both sides on this side. And I have x is greater than 9. Put an OR between these two. And there's my answer. I'm going to solve it real quick. So I have x is less than negative 1. So I have an open circle with it going to the left. Then I have x is greater than 9. So I have another open circle and a greater than. All right. So the key to solving these inequalities, if you have not figured this out, is just to stick with the rules. Once you get that down and you commit those to memory, you'll be fine. All right. If you have any questions, just make sure you bring them to class. We will be working on these a lot tomorrow.